My name is Roland Eddie Hamilton. My parents are Janice Wilson, Walter Rowe Hamilton Jr., and my maternal grandparents are late Mary and Woodrow Wilson, and the late Walter Hamilton and Agnes Hamilton from Gary. My Indian name is Vihalt White Man, and I'm a Kit Fox Society member, and I've completed my vows Sundance in 2011. And I'm glad that everybody's came and wanted to participate today and listen to some of the news that we have brought to you from way back east. The first 4 months here, we've really had a good relationship between the two branches. And I know that's something that's been controversial in the last administrations. It's been really a hardship for our people to really see the workings of what can be done or can't be done if we don't have a good relationship. And I really commend everybody from legislators and executive branch that we're able to come together, talk and discuss, compromise, get along, and make sure that we're going to do things right for our people. So with that, we put together 100 days since we came in, and that was in April 14th, when the 100 days. We look at the updates. We got progress, we got potential. You can go next slide. Chris Romanos, he's our Chief Administrative Officer, works at the Executive Office. He was actually our campaign manager through the whole elections. We actually have Kay McAtee. She's our interim treasurer for the Department of Treasury now. Mr. Cecil Gray. Where you at, Cecil? Over here on your right. He's our executive director for Department of Administration. Mr. Gordon Yellowman, he's our interim executive director for Department of Education. We have Carrie Whitlow. She's executive director for Department of Enrollment. Mr. Nicholas Barton, executive director for Department of Health. Mr. Bill Tallbear, executive director for Department of Housing. And we have Nikki Factor Navarro. She's our executive director for Department of Social Services. Those that are actually not with the title of interim, those that are actually executive directors have been approved through the legislative process, and I believe all 8 legislators have approved every one of those nominees. So that just shows you that we're in good unity with the legislative branch. Casino management. There's been a big change there because we had a really hard time of trying to go through the last administration about our casinos and the management style, the accountability, the things that were done that really are controversial still, but we eliminated those problems. We didn't have the same personnel come back. We needed a new approach on this. Most of our assistant general managers now, they're tribal members except for one, but he's been with the casino at Clinton for at least 10 years. So Matt Cagg, he's been working for the tribe or for the casino at least over 10 years as well. He's over at Concho. Tracer Hamilton, he's over at the Concho Tribal Center. Ron Klein is the one in Clinton. He's the non-tribal member, but he's the one that's been working for the tribe for at least 10 years. Kara Ferris is over in Watonga. Hannah Little Coyote is in Canton. Next slide. If you can see, since 2009, we've had variations that have gone on through what we project, that we get for the GRAP. So each month we get the allocation from the casinos. And so for the year, we kind of base upon what our GRAP's going to be like for the budget for our gaming programs and for the tribal government. You can see, I got to get out of your way here. Since 2009, 2010, our total that we were generating for those years was at 30 million. A little over 30 million. 2011 declined. 2012 was also declining. 2013 declined down to 26 million. So since we came in, obviously, we've had to look at the change and some of the so-called questionable spending that was going on within the management and the way they were operating accountability for monies that were being spent. And so we've seen our numbers that are kind of pretty basic to a point. Last month, what was our five? The numbers that we've gotten since yesterday is that for 1 month we had brought in $5.2 million in 1 month, because you're seeing the changes that we're having since our administration came in. We're trying to do some research to see what some of the other spikes had been for the previous administrations, if they had reached anything in that kind of an area. For myself, I don't remember anything being that high as for 1 month of a distribution from the casinos. So you can see we're kind of making our own way. We're trying to progress that we want the best for our tribal members, and we're trying to go those links of making sure that at the casino level, we want them to be responsible. We have to be fiscally responsible, and we're trying to make sure that these entities are being in the same manner. Back in 2008, 2009, there was the accumulations of buying a grocery store in Calumet, nursing home in Gary, the smoke shops. I know that's another big issue that we've got going on. But all three of those, in some way or another, had been bleeding the tribe. We had to find some ways to keep pumping money into those entities for them to survive, to stay open. We came in, and I believe at the end of, last administration, we eliminated the grocery store, which was good because it was really bleeding us. But we still have the smoke shops. And we look at the numbers, and we don't have the slide, but I know that we'll get it to you on our next shareholders meeting and the paperwork that will come with it. But since 2011, we went that far back to 2011 for the smoke shops. Since then to date, the smoke shops have lost $1,000,000 and some change. That's how much it's costing to keep that thing. Had been keeping it open. It just wasn't making any money. Last week we made the decision to go ahead and close them down. The employees that were working there, they already had gaming license, and that happened in last year, that we integrated them to make sure that the smoke shops would go into the casinos. The employees would have to get gaming license to work. So now we're able to integrate those employees into the casinos to actually keep working. So that's the responsibility we're taking on, and we want you to be aware of that. We don't want to hide anything from you. We want to make you guys make sure that that you see and are part of hopefully some of the decisions that we're making in the near future about how we're going to move forward with things. We look at the casinos and say that there has never been any kind of parameters that goes on there. You look at the last administration where, the controversial issue was poker tribes, $9.5 million. You guys had no idea about that, how it was being spent, what was going out the door, kind of stuff, what the product was, or some issues like that. So we came in and we actually had the attorney from the previous administration because they had filed against the U.S. government about poker tribes, and so we came in and told them, no, you guys withdraw. We're not going to be a part of that. So they withdrew their case. But the instances of like poker tribes, because the casino at Canton and Watonga, whatever they were generating as revenue, they were paying Universal Entertainment Group. That's the parent company of poker tribes. They were going from the casino, getting authorization from casino management, I guess, or back then the governor, her signature was on those authorizations, and they were electronic authorizations. It wasn't her actual signature that she signed. But if you don't have parameters like that to say the casinos can't spend money without us knowing, At least there should be a process. That's what we want to try to instill, to make sure that nothing like that happens in our administration or beyond. And so that's what we need your help with, is when we put these together, encourage, talk to your legislators, we'll present it to tribal council, we'll do every effort that we can to make sure that everybody's aware of we need to put parameters at the casino level. Because they were signing, and we're still stuck in contracts from last administration, that the contracts, if you've seen what they were about and for the length of time and the amount of money that we're going to have to spend for the next 6 years or so for various contracts, for what they were giving us up front, we're going to be end up paying them triple back over that time and length. So is that fair? Is that fair? It goes into this administration and even beyond that administration to somebody else to say that we're still stuck in these contracts? These types of issues are things that everybody should be aware of. There should be a better process to where legislators are approached from the executive branch saying these are contracts that we want you guys to review and look at. We want the tribal council to see what you're reviewing, or let them be a part of deciding should we go that route. So these are the responsibilities that we're trying to take and bring upon, that everybody should be aware of, and everybody should be involved, at least giving guidance to take us in a better direction. Next slide. So casino expenses identified and eliminated was over $2.3 million spent on lawyers and lobbyists since 2010. You can't avoid lawyers, and even though the ones that say that they're going to not be so expensive, there's always going to be a cost. So I mean that's just going to be a given. Over $2 million was spent on the BRAC security. Many of you may have seen or heard that there was checkpoints at the complex, and you had to stop, show your ID, state your purpose or reason. Security measures would happen because there was, of course, the internal turmoil between who's governor and who's, all that kind of stuff. So $2 million was spent, which we eliminated on that security. There's no more checkpoints there. That was probably one of our first actions, was to make sure that was gone. Over $11 million was spent on entertainment. The acts, the concerts, stuff like that, they were good, but they really didn't make money that they had for that night. And we're still, you look at the numbers that we're trying to bring to today, is that 5.2 million in 1 month. That's without any kind of entertainment. So you can kind of see the difference. $925,000 was spent to rent the Concho Event Center. I always called it the moon bounce because it looked like a big moon bounce there. That was spent on that, and it was going to cost us $25,000 per month if we kept it, because it was a 3-year lease. It wasn't something that we were being able to buy. It was a lease. So we eliminated that. Over 1.2 was spent to rent a parking lot in Clinton from Clinton Land Holdings LLC, a company owned by Tom Fox. Tom Fox, remember, was Southwest Casino. And previously, before he got a hold of that land, we were just renting that parking lot for $500 a month. So we eliminated from keep on spending. With the contract, this is one of those other contracts that we talked about, that we're stuck with, or that we were going to be stuck with, was that the guy was going to get $25,000 a month for renting or leasing that land and whatever facilities that were there also. And then on top of that, he was going to get 1% of the net win, which was roughly, so it was basically, we were spending about $60,000 a month for that land, to lease that land from him, because of a contract that was done in that way. So you're talking about a lot of wasted money. You can go to the next slide. We had another contract that happened also last administration. Actually, two. One was to build a travel center there across the street from Concho, with a construction company. And in that contract, it's pretty much basically the same one that's happening out in Hammond with the casino being built out there, casino and convenience store, is that the contract to pay for it, and then included in there was also 10% of net wins from those casinos that would go also to that into that contract. So it's just, I mean, it's just so many things were going on that we'd finally got to be able to see, and it's just things that we shouldn't be doing. We eliminated over 1.8 million in annual executive salaries eliminated. You can see from those years and those numbers, the CEO made out with 3.5 million over his tenure there. His contract or agreement was that he would get 3% of the net revenue beyond his $500,000 annual salary. So the others that are listed there as well. One of the reasons why we put the tribal liaison was that individual was also working in the governor's office as the executive assistant. She was making well into the 80,000s without a degree, and then she went down 2012 and 13 was making additional $30,000 from down there. So that's why we wanted to point that out. Next slide. We presented shareholder meetings in Concho, Watonga, Clinton, Canton on those dates, informing them about our financial status. The executive branch has presented a regular. We have been presented, or we've been represented at all the regular and special sessions of the legislative branch since we came into office. So either we were sitting there, me and Lieutenant Governor, or Chief Administrative Officer Chris sits in those meetings. The legislative and executive branch have positive weekly conversations about proposed resolutions. We've implemented finances. We've implemented proactive and detailed accounting procedures for our qualified employees in the Department of Treasury to gain control of the finances. All programs have been assigned a responsible, qualified accountant to address program expenditures in a way that would better serve our tribal members. Treasury report is still a work in progress. Currently, the executive branch and legislative branch are working diligently together to find a true budget that best serves our people. Next slide. Our casinos, gaming revenue from Watonga and Canton are actually being distributed to the gaming revenue allocation plan. Previously, it was just hit and miss whether they wanted to contribute or how much they were contributing to the GRAP. But now we're having those two casinos as well as I think we're starting now with the Travel Center that we're getting their numbers as well. Clinton Concho distributions in the GRAP have been 3.9 million for months of January, February, and March. Canton Watonga 1.1 for those same months. Lucky Star Casino Canton celebrated their 6-year anniversary on March 15th. Watonga celebrated their 10-year anniversary on April 5th. Steps have been taken to enforce a positive and professional work environment. One of the things that we found out, along with them not being real responsible at the casino level, was that they didn't have any kind of budgets that they were working by, and they really didn't have an organizational tree where it showed who's supervising where does everybody lie within each department, and it was just a mess. And it's just something that you've got to have some of the basics in business. When you talk about, you got to have a budget to go by your department. The procurement process never really existed. So if you were doing a project out there, they would just get their buddy and let them do the project. There wasn't no 3-bid process, stuff like that. So I mean, those are just issues that we're trying to make sure that we're changing that whole culture that happens within the casinos. We've actually had every casino employee, regardless of what part they play in management, also, that they actually clock in and out. You always heard about ghost employees, and people still get full-time paychecks kind of stuff. So we changed it. And I think there was a lot of employees that were really relieved and glad that we changed that aspect, because we want accountability. And we want to show people that, if you come in, do your work, have good work ethic, then things will change. Will change for the better. We want them to actually be able to go to training, and get more educated and move up. Have our employees or our tribe members move up in the ladders of the management. So we're going to change that kind of mindset as well. We've met with several different departments there at the casino, and we actually sit down and would have the supervisors and managers leave the room. We talk to the employees that are out there, on the front lines working and hearing their problems and trying to see if we can help resolve, make them feel better. We want to improve employee morale. And it's the same thing at the complex. We want everybody to be a part of something of greater that'll help our tribe members out, and have that attitude where if you call, if you come in, that you're greeted well and you're put up with a lot of respect. They want to hear you and help you try to find resolution to your problems. Next slide. Current GRAP is essentially a big pot of money that will be distributed to the programs. If you remember, years ago, we had GRAP defined as each department or each program would get a certain percentage. Elder care, 16, education, 10, so on. There was a change. That change came to where there was so much put into tribal government, and the rest was kind of more or less programs. It wasn't defined, and so there really wasn't a way that they were instructed to go by budgets, but they kind of mirrored the existing percentages, and that's kind of how they kept task on that. But we want to get back into where we're going to identify specifically what elder care should get, and look at even the per cap. It's at 20. Should it be at 25? What are the changes that we want to get feedback. We want to see what people are wanting from this. And so we want to get back to a specific breakdown of the GRAP in those programs. Casinos, when you look at what you have around here, there's other casinos you've been to that are really got it going on. They really are attractive, and you kind of go back to ours and we're just kind of the same, and it's really not, but people still come out there and gamble. But we want to, hey, let's put some efforts into sprucing it up. Can we get into investments that people will come or companies will come and say, hey, we want to do a hotel. We'll not just talk about it. Let's do it. Let's do things that help improve bringing people to our casinos, make it a destination. Unity, we highly encourage all tribe members to voice their opinions, comments, and most importantly, solutions to help our people move in a positive direction. Our senior leadership is encouraged to be available at all times. We understand that serving our people is more than an 8 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of job. We built bridges by having positive and professional conversations with past tribal leaders and crossing counterpart parties by hiring them as part of our administration. The decisions we make are emphasized with the phrase, how will this help our people? And when you talk about, being in positions of the tribe, and, to me, I was fortunate to be a part of that and learn and observe and really get into the finer tunings of what that means. And, it's just something that I try to encourage is for people that, those people that kind of more or less like they want to be negative all the time and talk and gossip and gripe, But my issue, part of that is okay. Well, what can you bring to help solve that? What is you're bringing in that you're going to say? Well, this is an option. This is a recommendation of how we can actually do better in this area. That's what I want to encourage. Of us being more responsible and everybody having input, and we welcome that. I think Chris put this one there. That's not what your tribe can do for you, but that's what you can do for your tribe. And so, we want this administration to be something of a different take on how we actually approach things and how we want everybody to be responsible and not just, leaderships, they're elected in, they should be making sound judgment calls, being respectful, but, we actually encourage the feedback. We want to know how you feel. We want to know where we need to make changes. And I know individually, we can all have different aspects and views, but as a whole, where can we go from there? How can we get more involvement from you that live out of state, and make sure that you're aware of what's going on? And these are things that we want to bring to the light and to the table for you, is to see what's going on financially with our tribe. How are we changing things? How are we changing the game of what we used to be doing? And it was just kind of like spinning our tires of the approaches and management style of what we were doing. And so by accountability, we've enforced that all tribe members receiving services may be a sound mind. We get those that are intoxicated or, really irate and stuff, so we have to handle those situations. We emphasize that for all departments to follow up and return phone calls, answer phone calls. There's been honest and open communication between the legislative and executive branches of government. Process of updating program guidelines and procedures has begun. All senior leadership have volunteered to take drug tests. We got those tests back because our meeting between the governor, chief administrative officer, and then our executive directors, I think I seen an email that showed where we had all passed our drug test. But we're going to also look at trying to offer the same for legislative branch, judicial branch, and go into casino. Well, casinos have to do that anyway, but employees within the complex, that we should all take that same stance. Innovative tribal reform. BIA has stated regarding this administration, quote, the tribal leadership and staff in place has been very responsible and professional in their dealings with us and seem to have the best interests of the tribes as their top priority, end quote. As peer settlement is an interest and will begin to find a way for settlement. Blood quantum topic will be addressed and brought to the communities for all tribal members to input. Any change will need approval of tribal council. Every concern brought to the executive office by a tribal member has been treated with respect. Next slide. Development. New leadership change and economic development. Infrastructure updates being conducted for the main complex building. New water plan. I think that was one of the highlights from the last administration, that they, with the tax commission, they put money to the side from the severance tax to build a new modern water plant. There are storm shelters being built. They're actually, when are they? Was it this week, or when are they starting to put those up out there? Next week. Okay. We have 4 storm shelters that are being put up for our child care and Head Start. There will be a drug policy that will be enforced by taking the proper steps. Emergency management program to help with the needs and concerns of tribal members during states of emergencies. Final stages are being completed to begin the construction of the new Concho Respect Gym. Grand opening of the new El Reno Indian Health Service Clinic is tentatively scheduled for May. Many of you may have read or know that the tornado came through last year, May 31st, destroyed the one downtown. And so there was another highlight for the last administration. They bought another clinic on the west side of town in El Reno, and it's just waiting for IHS staff to actually move in, so that's what we're waiting on. The No Topic Gay Third Foundation Grant Award for Nutrition and Education and Buffalo Cooking with Commodities in the Department of Health we received. Outreach services for LIHEAP were provided to the communities of Sealing, Clinton, Canton, Hammond communities and the Department of Social Services. And work has continued to complete the Hammond Casino. Goals. Provide tools and resources for our tribal members for self-sufficiency. Empower our youth through cultural identity. Invest resources for language revitalization for the entire tribe. Increase health topics by prevention. Continue positive tribal government for all tribal members. Continue building positive relationships. Begin to heal and move forward in a positive direction for all our Cheyenne Arapaho people. That's our combination of our 100 days and our shareholders meetings. But I know that we've instructed our staff to mail you that first presentation, PowerPoint presentation of our shareholders meeting. So if you haven't received it, you should be receiving it soon. And then in May, we'll begin our second version of our shareholders, so you'll receive soon that also. But you can also look at those up. I think they'll be posted online or website for you to view also. Does anybody have any questions? Did you want to say anything before we go any further? Anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Has the nepotism issues being addressed at our casinos? Because just from, it seemed to me like we didn't own the casino anymore. This family owned the casino because everybody in that family was working there. And that was nepotism, big time.
Thank you for the question. Yes, nepotism, you're talking about that one family, been eliminated. They're not in positions that they were before. They don't work at the casinos like they did before. And it was tough. It was tough for morale for everybody else because obviously that family and if they had kids or relatives that worked, they couldn't be touched. They couldn't be written up. They couldn't be disciplined, that kind of stuff, But everybody else had to go through all that. It was a tough, and I know because my wife works in the casino. She, of course, seen and heard everything that was going on. But it was a struggle. I mean, it was something that really brought down people really wanting to go to work, keep working, kind of stuff, And so, but that's been eliminated. We no longer have that issue at hand.
The NASPERS settlement, it included almost 40 tribes, counting CNAs, and it was approved April last year. What's taking so long for the CNAs to get their money? I keep reading on Indians.com about different tribes collecting their money. When will the CNAs get their money?
I think it goes back to most of other issues that we're trying to deal with at this point is leadership disputes. And that's just an ongoing issue that everybody's vying to be governor and have their own ownership of it. And so with IBIA and BIA, that's just been a constant battle of trying to overcome that obstacle to help us move forward with actually gaining control of those monies or getting after them. So those are probably the reasons why there's a delay. Anybody else? Yes.
I had a question about the emergency assistance program. Are you guys? I have 4 kids and also going through disability right now, and I was heard that you have to have a job and that the emergency assistant is the last resort and to use every resort in your community before you go to emergency assistance. Is that true?
Not necessarily a job. I think we try to push for the efforts of trying to find those resources that could be utilized. But, I think we're still open for Cecil's Department of Administration, and crisis exists under his department. So, that would be helpful if you probably got with him to talk a little bit more about your situation to see where we can get the help at.
So do you have to have, since I filed a disability claim, do you have to have a job too?
No, not necessarily.
In order to get help with food or rent?
No, not necessarily. Because I think it's just some part it asks if have you been applying. There's a part of the application that goes along with have you been applying for jobs. They just want to see that you're actually going through that. Or if you're disability, that might be something that had to be, we have to just waive and go after the other issues that are going on with there.
And how about if you're a full-time student too? Do you still have to find employment?
No, it's not a requirement that you are employed or have to find employment. It's just something we can work with you on trying to make sure we get you the help. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sir, this gentleman had a question.
Thank you. Jerry Surveyor. I've got two questions. So the first question is, while we've disassociated ourselves, the tribe has, from pokertribes.com, the tribe invested 9.5 million. Are we going to recover any of that money, or what happens to it? That's one question. The second question is, several years ago, the tribe received some back pay through litigation of our gas and severance tax to the tune of 15 million plus. Where is it? What happened to it? Is there a accountability for that money? Anything left of it? You know, where's it at?
Good questions, and I'm sorry we didn't have part of that on this presentation we had, but it clearly states in there where the money went, how it was distributed through different programs that put in their wish list or what they thought that their programs needed or departments needed. So there was money that was being spent, but it was all been through the process. Tax commission. I think the last number I seen was they had like $86,000 left after all that. Because you look at, they put $2 million aside, I think, for water plant, $2 million for the gymnasium. What were some of the other storm shelters? So there were things that were actually bought for the advantage of the tribes, and money were spent for that. Poker tribes, the 9.5 recovery. That's a tough one because UEG went out and actually tried to get other tribes, bigger tribes, to buy it. Nobody wants to buy it. It's not a good product. The people that were having or holding it we found out later afterwards that wasn't a good person that was actually selling it. Recovering it. If you look at part of what I was talking about earlier, if there were no parameters that they were held for, that they were using the revenue coming out of those casinos to pay for it, but there was nothing set up to some sort of resolution or bill or policy or guidelines that said you can't do that, then how can you hold them against something on that issue from the casino spending money like that? So those are questions that we have to ask and try to figure out. If we can go after it, nobody wants to buy it, so you can't actually go back out there and try to sell it to somebody. Say, hey, take our material here, take our product here. We want to sell it to you. Nobody wants to buy it. It's not a good product, so you can't get it that way. Can you go after those individuals? I think there's ways and means, but it kind of goes back to if they didn't have no parameters that you were bound by, then how can you go after them and say that you did against the guidelines or policies? But we're still trying to figure out with our attorneys how we can actually put them to their feet to the fire on that whole issue. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sue Lunsford. I'm from Calumet, Oklahoma, and I'm Cheyenne. And my one main concern is our crisis assistance program. I lost my job after 7.5 years in December, and I was going through a really hard time. I put my application in January. It was lost. I faxed it again a couple days later. It was lost. I'm just wondering, do we have some people that are competent in the crisis assistance program to help us out here? Because I'm telling you, you have a lot of people that do not like the crisis assistance program. They're not filling the needs of our people out here. They're not listening to us. I don't know what the problem is, but now I'm in the same process again, and it's been 4 months. And my water bill is not in my name. Well, the tribe says they cannot pay it because it's not in my name. Well, it's in my landlord's name. Out here, they do not put it in your name if you're a tenant. So there's an issue with that too. But I had this young kid helping me. I didn't know if he had a college education or not, even if he graduated. Then he was over in Clinton, then he was back in Concho. We really need to be able to depend on somebody in crisis, that is can do the job, and not have as facts. And there's a lot of natives out here that don't have cars, that are very poor, that don't have anything, and to get down to the Indian Center, now it costs $2 to fax stuff, So when we fax stuff, we expect you guys to get it. Not say, oh, it got lost here, it got lost there. Whose responsibility is this? Because there's a lot of people hurting out here and do need the crisis assistant. Now I have a job and I'm able to fend for myself again, but I take a lot of care of a lot of people at my house, and I never turn anybody down that comes to my house or who has to eat or drink or anything, but this one time I needed the crisis assistance, and I don't know how many years, and it's taken 5 months now. I think that's a little long.
I apologize for that, and ultimately, it's my responsibility. And so, I take that with Cecil and the staff to actually improve how we actually communicate and get things done in a timely manner.
I think she has a good point, and maybe we can try to work on making that a little bit more. The one thing with me is that I've had to ask for assistance. I'm a full-time student going into the nursing school, and I have 3 children, and when I asked for assistance, I was told that I needed to look for a job. I don't know how. Yeah, I have to go look for a job. I have a 5-year-old son that's on breathing treatments. I worked for the government for 12 years. I resigned due to his health. That's a little frustrating on my end. It discourages me to go to the tribe to ask for help. And it's not like I'm trying to freeload. I'm actually going to school to better my life.
Thank you. Take a note. You want to help respond on that? I know that they've been working on trying to help change policies, because currently we're still operating what was done in previous. So we're looking at trying to help change those policies.
My name is Cecil Gray, and I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Administration. Crisis is a program under my direction. And in January, there was a change made. And we do have a new crisis director. And she seems to be doing a good job following the guidelines. And I think the biggest problem is I think the guidelines need to be revised, to help people that are needing the assistance where it's a true crisis situation. And we are currently in the process, actually been working on that the past 2-3 weeks, to revise these guidelines. And we want to bring these guidelines to the people and let you guys see them and see the changes that we would like to make, and see what you guys think and get your input before we actually implement them. A lot of people that are in the Concho area, they seem to get more help than people that are outside of the area, and we want to change that. We want to correct that, and so that's the direction that we want to go. And so those of you that have issues with crisis or have had issues, I'd ask of you guys after the meeting to come speak with me, and I'll make sure that we get your issue addressed tonight. Okay?
Thank you.
While sitting here, I've heard that you guys have many new different employees and directors and different employees moving around. So what you did, you just brought in new people that didn't really know anything to help these people, because there's a lot of people out here that need help. In fact, this has been going on for years and years and years. And I think through the Boswell administration, they said the same thing. We're working on it, we'll get it done. And we haven't seen anything out here. But my main concern is that pokertribes.com. This is the second time I heard you talk about it, where you say, yeah, we're working on this, You guys are doing a lot of work, I'd like to see some action. some results. But you talk about, well, we got our attorneys looking into this and all this stuff like that. Well, these attorneys are costing you a lot of money. I think White Men and that guy sitting up there, you know, they know what it costs to file complaints against the administration and to hire all these attorneys and stuff like that. So it costs a lot of money. But my point is, I believe you were the executive director of administration during the Boswell administration, and you were the treasurer. And you guys still believe you guys didn't know anything about it?
Well, how would you think we would know anything about it?
In your positions?
Yeah. What would be your answer?
In your positions?
Yeah. How would I know about it?
You're in your position as an executive director, because you would have day-to-day discussions with the governor. Same thing with him. So you're denying that you don't know anything about the 9.5 million?
Well, if you remember in our campaign, and even after we came in, we admitted that we knew initially that Poker Tribes was on the table. But the initial discussion that Boswell had with everybody, including legislators and us, key staff at that point, and it didn't include all the executive directors, just a couple. And so we even admitted back then that we knew that it was on the table. We thought the product that was the presentation that came sounded like it's something that's going to be golden for us to take us up to the next level. Beyond that, how would we know that Canton and Watonga spend the money to UEG if they never reported it to the treasurer? How do we know that? Because soon after they signed and put the first check to UEG, 3 days later is whenever the government shut down because of the banks froze our accounts. So we were in a whole other scramble mode of trying to make sure that the tribe is functioning, staying afloat. We're still kind of keeping people employed, the hours. So question is, how would we know that Canton, how would I know the casino spending money like that if I'm an executive director for Department of Administration where I have 20 programs?
Well, you're in charge of, or you oversee the Treasury Department, don't you?
No, I don't.
You don't.
Executive directors are on the same playing field. That's something that the previous administrations never got. That there's a governor, lieutenant governor. Some had chief of staff. Chief of staff was over the executive directors. All the executive directors were on one playing field.
Well, then tell me, what are you going to do about $9.5 million?
Did you not hear me explain that? What was my response?
It's the same thing. Well, we're going to look into it. We got our attorneys doing this. They do something about it right now. I'm trying to.
What is the recommendation?
Pardon me?
What's a recommendation?
Recommendation? What's my recommendation?
What's your solution? Because like I told you earlier, you got people that just want to gripe, complain, and be negative, but they don't want to offer a solution.
I did that.
Is that it?
No, I've got a lot of others, but there's people here that
Well, I don't want to disrespect these people because they came to hear what we're about, what the solutions are, how we're trying to progress, how we're trying to make waves of making sure that we're not going to be stuck in the same kind of mentality.
Now this time we're going to go into the fifth legislator presentation on some ideals we've been working on. Like we said, we are in the growing process. We are growing and we are trying our best. You have bestowed upon that as elected officials to move this tribe forward. A few of the things that we are working on that we want to move this tribe forward on. The main thing that we have on our table, the main thing we have on our plate, but like it has been mentioned, is getting a grasp on this gaming allocation plan, on this money, and putting it where it needs to be. And the main thing that we need, that we all want to do as Cheyenne Arapaho people, is take care of our folks, our relatives. So the main one we're working on is minimum wage law. Mr. Obama is projecting to bring the minimum wage to $10.10 by next year. We as Cheyenne Arapaho people, we need to be on the forefront and lead this tribe forward. So by that, we want to have our own, since we are a sovereign entity, to move our minimum wage to at least a comfortable wage, 10.50, somewhere around there. So that way, when Obama passes his law, we'll already be ahead of the game. We'll already have ways in our federal programs, all of our programs, and most of all, help our relatives. Just by visiting with one another through this communication that was developed through the legislative staff and the governing staff, our casinos, they have raised some of the wages up to $9 an hour to help our relatives, because in Sealand, a gallon of milk is $4 or $5. Bread is expensive. So by visiting and communication, working together, slowly these seeds are growing to help our people. And this is an item that we have, that it takes the people. These are items that we're working on. Amend the Constitution for the betterment. And it takes you, our Cheyenne Arapaho people, to bring your concerns, how you want this Constitution to be changed for the betterment of future generations. Another one is amend the tax code. We need to bring things up forward into this new generation. And so these are items that we're working on. We are bringing the Department of Housing, as it is described in the Constitution of the Cheyenne Arapaho Tribes, that it is a branch. So we will be bringing that under the umbrella of the tribes, and that's what we're working on today. The election. We all know the election board rules and regulations. Like we said, we're a new administration. We want things better for the future generations. So we need a proper election code, things brought up to date, so it's a smooth flowing process. Like we had mentioned, we all know as Cheyenne Arapaho people, water. Water is our source of life. Without water, we're nothing. And by my help, by BADA, and through this, like you had mentioned, that Chesapeake settlement that was offered, they set aside that money to build a new water plant. And when that water plant comes, then we can grow. We can then expand and put these new programs in, these new facilities. Like Mr. Eddie Hamilton said, expanding our casino. We've been idle at the casino. With adequate water pressure and water system, we can finally start developing things like this for our folks back at home.
Elder Care is another program under my direction. Department of Administration has a total of 19 programs underneath this department, and it's a lot. There's a lot going on. But January, again, there was a new director that was hired because of some of the inefficiencies that have happened in the past. And it was corrected by hiring a new director to fix a lot of these problems. January, and I'm just going off of memory, but I believe that we are sending out 1,400 food cards for our elders. And I'm signing off on these check requests, which total $140,000 a month that we are distributing to our elders. And so as of recently, I can, confirm that these are getting out to our elders. There may be issues with the process, possibly. And if there are, I'd like for you to come.
I send in his application once a month.
Okay.
I call him as soon as I send that in. I fax it. Like she said, it takes money to fax. I live 18 miles out of town. I have to go in there. If it don't go through, I gotta drive 18 more miles back to town, back
Okay.
for my father.
Okay. Well, we have technology tonight that I can actually contact.
I talked to somebody over the phone and I got these people laughing in my ear. Now that's unprofessional.
And I agree.
Very unprofessional.
I agree. And I apologize about that. And these are the things that need to be brought to my attention so that they can be addressed. But if we can talk after the meeting, I will have an answer for you, and somebody will be in contact with you tomorrow to address this issue.
I just wanted to support Mr. Shortman's thoughts in referring to the disproportionate allocation of elder benefits to the local people in Oklahoma versus the out-of-state elders. A prime example is the Respect program has a program every month for the elder, apparently the local elders. So they receive much more benefits than the out-of-state elders. So I do support Mr. Shortman's position in relation to the disproportionality of the allocation of benefits. Aside from that, I'm interested, I noticed the last portion of the presentation indicated a 5-year economic development plan. I'm interested in economic development with for the tribes, and I saw no document, or that's the only statement I saw, and I'm certainly interested in that area. I have gone to the website, the tribal government website, and I don't think that that particular economic development section has ever been updated, and there's literally nothing on that section. I would also just like to tell everyone too that the tribal members in this area, we number 236 according to the tribe's database. Thank you.
And then we can get you back in touch with planning department on those books that we had passed, and Mr. Ramos can get your address. That way we can get that book to you. And those were projective ideals to kind of look at on future developments, things like that. So nothing really set in stone, but they were just ideals that were brought forth for growth expansion.
The per cap money that Harjo is holding hostage at a bank at Ada, Oklahoma, will the tribe ever get that money back, and will the money ever get mailed out?
We actually made an attempt to sit down with her and have her sign an affidavit, but she's still holding out. She's trying to claim that she should be governor. So when the gentleman asked about how many governors are out there, I think even Roberta Hamilton's claiming that she should be governor. So there's 4 total. So you can see why there's so much internal dispute going on and why there needs to be some sort of solution to this. RBIA, are we waiting on them to give us their answer to it? It's just, where do we go? But we've attempted to try to negotiate with her and have her, be a part of moving forward and getting that money out, but she's holding back on that.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Appreciate all the questions. I hope we answered some of your questions. I want to thank all the employees that make the trip from Oklahoma. I want to thank the governor, lieutenant governor for coming out, and I want to thank everybody for coming out. I hope, appreciate it.